Welcome back to the Love Your Brain podcast, or welcome if you're new. Now, this week on the podcast, we're going to be talking about something that everybody on the internet is talking about, and that is trauma. Everybody's an expert these days. Everybody has ideas on how you should handle trauma, how to heal your trauma, how to never remember your trauma. Everyone has got an opinion. But I want to bring you a different approach. And this is from my personal experience. This is not something that I learned when I got my social work degree. This is not something that I've learned in my neuroscience classes. It's none of that. This is something that I have seen play out in real life so many times, and something that played itself out in kind of a funny way in my own life. So stick with me. This is going to get silly. So, if any of you have seen the movie, The King of Staten Island, with Pete Davidson. It is, I guess, like a rough depiction of his life, maybe like if he had not become famous. But basically, he went through a traumatic experience. His dad was a firefighter and he had passed away in 9/11. And so this story is a little bit about like Pete Davidson's going through and trying to process that, but also like not handling it super well and using what some might say unhealthy coping mechanisms, so on and so forth. But Pete Davidson, I feel like he's kind of an endearing person, and you see him navigate these waters, and you have a lot of compassion for him. It's a really interesting story. So if you haven't seen it, I would check it out. But what's funny is that when I saw that movie, it completely changed my life. When I was younger, I was in a Lifetime movie when I was like 8. I had started off just as an extra in that movie, and then the director had pulled my parents aside and asked if I wanted a speaking role, and that kicked off a whole journey that was very fun, very exciting, very different. But then, I went back to regularly scheduled programming and lived life, raised kids, so on and so forth. But when I saw this movie, I had this very distinct moment where I could see how powerful it was for someone to tell a story about navigating trauma in a way that we don't get to see in people's lives day to day. Usually, this was like a very raw depiction of him bumbling through the process of healing. And I thought, man, it really got me so moved and thinking in a different way and feeling inspired. I immediately thought, I want to do the same thing. I want to be able to help people have that moving experience that inspires them, that helps them to see life experiences in a different way and think differently and all of that. And so I actually did end up getting signed by a talent agency and going into all of that. I'm going to circle back to that at the end of this episode, but just like bookmark that in your brain for a moment. The thing that I think is so interesting about trauma is most of us have the perspective that trauma is a wound that is meant to be healed and then forgotten about. Like you're putting a Band-Aid on it, you're putting some Neosporin on it, you're putting scar cream on it. You are hoping that one day no one's even going to be able to tell that injury was there. That's the goal for most people. And I think that's fair because most of us look at very polished, successful people around us that we aspire to be, and we think they probably don't have any of these wounds, right? Which, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, they do. But we think that they look polished and successful because surely they did not go through the wild shenanigans that I've been through, right? Or that my family's been through. And so we think, well, if I could just get rid of my wounds and make them like not visible or not identifiable anymore, then I could look polished and successful like those other people. And the funny thing is everybody's doing the same thing. So like it doesn't really even make sense because the polished people are doing that too, right? But in my journey in social work and in helping people throughout all these years, I can tell you that the people who are on the other side of a traumatic event that are the most fulfilled people are those that don't heal their trauma to hide it. They are people that are putting their trauma to use. And that is, I think, a component that people aren't talking about enough, is that you having survived any trauma makes you a freaking superhero in that one specific area of life. Like the way that you experienced whatever you experienced, and I know you've experienced things, is unlike anything that anyone else has experienced on the planet because that's just how life works. There are no two experiences that are identical. So you have a very unique skill set because of what you've experienced that you can bring to the world now in a very unique way. And yet we're putting band-aids on it and trying to hide it and shove it in the back of our drawer, right? And that is where I think we're losing touch with a lot of the value that trauma brings to our lives. And I'm not trying to minimize anyone's pain or say that, it's good that you experienced all that pain, although I think there is some truth to that as well. But what I am saying is that don't just heal it to hide it. It can be used not only for the good of the world, right? But also so that you can feel like your pain has been used for good. And I think what's funny is we look at people that are actors in movies or TV shows or even people in books where we get to see behind the scenes of them navigating hard things that they go through, right? Like that's usually a part of the storyline is they've experienced some big trauma. We get to watch them navigate it and come out on the other side and we feel inspired and we feel all kinds of things afterwards. But we aren't doing that with each other day to day in life. And that's what's so funny. Like, it seems safe to do it with these people that we're detached from or these stories that could even be fictional. Yet we all are living this out every day, but keeping our stories often very hidden. And what's funny to circle back to the Pete Davidson inspiration here, this is what's hilarious and why I'm sharing this with you today, because this has been my own personal journey, which you're probably going to laugh at me and that's fine. But part of the reason I decided to get back into acting was because I wanted to be able to do something similar that he had done, right? And like be able to see my story inspire other people. Now, how I thought I was going to do that, just becoming like an actor who was taking normal acting jobs, I'm not entirely sure. But in my mind, it really played out well. It made sense. But it was funny because I think I pictured that that was really the only way to do it. That, like, in order for me to inspire people on a broad scale was for me to be an actor like him, being able to portray my story on a movie screen, right? When in reality, we have the opportunity to have that same experience with every interaction with every human on this planet. We have the opportunity to be honest about our stories and inspire people with what we've navigated. And I just think that's incredible. Like, that's where the joy of life is. When we can be vulnerable with one another, when we can open up about our stories and be able to inspire other people. I mean, think about someone that climbed Mount Everest, for example. Like, that's something that someone would be proud of. It was a really challenging experience. I mean, I don't know this firsthand, but I can imagine it would be really difficult. And you'd want to ask that person all kinds of questions about how they navigated getting up there. How did they pee? Like, you probably have a million questions you would want to ask someone who overcame something so massive. And that's seen as totally okay. But if someone navigated some sort of like severe emotional trauma, it's not socially acceptable for us to like ask them questions, nor do we often even know because they haven't shared it with us that they even experienced it. So there's like all this hidden goodness that we don't ever get to see about people and what they've navigated. It's crazy. A couple years ago, I was a guest on a podcast to talk about having a family member that struggles with addiction. And my mom has struggled with addiction a lot of my life. And so the purpose of this was for me to share our story. But I felt really uncomfortable at first, not just for the fact that I was having to open up and be vulnerable, but also because this was also partially my mom's story as well. And so I decided I was going to have a very intentional conversation about my mom's comfort level with me sharing this information. And I think I may have even asked afterwards if we could like send her the recording before it was posted live. And I was completely shocked with my mom's response. Now, I'll tell you, my mom is not a super open person. She doesn't tell a lot of people about her addiction. She just isn't open about it. And that's okay. I think that's also probably like a generational thing as well. But when she heard the information that was being shared, she was very quick to say, we have to share this information. This has to go out so it can inspire other people so that other people know how to navigate these waters. And I was so moved by that because it takes a lot. I think there's a lot of shame related to being a parent whose addiction impacted their child, right? Like there could be a lot of judgment there. But my mom was able to get to a place where she was like, no, there is value in this shared trauma that we've experienced, and we need to share it with people. And to me, that legacy will never go away. Every person that's ever listened to that podcast episode, I know was impacted in some way by that message. There were a lot of things that we shared about being a parent, navigating the waters of, having their own trauma, processing struggles in their own life, and how that impacts your child, and then trying to make sure your child has what they need to heal. There was just so much in there that I think is going to help people probably for years to come. And that's an incredible thing. And we all, every single person on this planet has experienced something in their life that is going to bring value to this world. But so many of us are healing those wounds, putting the scar cream on, covering it up so that no one will ever see it was there, thinking that that's the goal. When the goal should be, how can I heal this enough that I can actually feel okay showing it to people? And this doesn't mean like we're going around trauma dumping on everyone that we meet. This means that we're all healing it, right? Which is a lifelong process. It might be messy, okay, but we're also being open about it. And, if people have questions, we're talking about it. If we see there's something that we can offer someone in terms of words of wisdom, we do that. And I think it could just be a really cool place so that we're not just seeing these things on movies or reality TV or in books. This is something that we're all doing with each other as we're living alongside each other, sharing our stories and being open about the waters that we're navigating. Because everyone, even the polished, professional, successful, most amazing person that you've ever seen, is navigating trauma in some way, shape, or form that they've experienced. And everyone's is so uniquely different. So if even one person decides they're not going to share their story, there is something in that story that simply will not be shared with the world. Can you imagine that? Like, think about all of the types of candy in the world, okay? Now, you can be a hater on certain types of candy. You can be a hater in candy in general. I personally like kind of weird candy. I love black licorice. That's freaking weird. But you know what? It brings me absolute joy. So whoever created black licorice, they did it and it blesses my life to no end. So like, I'm so incredibly grateful for that. So think about your trauma. There is something so unique about what you've experienced that's going to bless the socks off of somebody else, just like black licorice does for me. And if you don't share it with the world, that person will never experience black licorice. You're probably like gagging as you listen to me talk about this, but I just feel like there's so many nuggets of value in all of the things that we experience that we try to keep under wraps and try to keep on our persona that, we're great and dandy and everything's fine. And in fact, like, that's our greatest thing. If you think about it, your trauma is like your superhero suit that you wear under your clothes, And like, are you going to let someone see that you're like Batman underneath all that? Or are you just going to like keep it hidden forever, right? We know those stories. So anyway, thanks for humoring me with my strange Pete Davidson inspiration. I will tell you that I am not currently acting. This could change at any point in time. But to circle back, I ended up actually telling my manager I no longer needed representation and kind of pulled back from that world because this world that I'm in now became such a big part of my heart. And I feel that I can use my story to inspire people this way. And it's just a different way of doing it that I feel like has been really fun and exciting and healing for me in a lot of different ways. So again, maybe I'll go down that road again someday, but for now I've put a pause on it. But I still have such a fond memory of Pete Davidson and the King of Staten Island just inspiring me one day and kicking off this whole season of life of resurrecting my acting career that it's kind of funny, but I think it's such a good depiction of like someone else's trauma totally changed the trajectory of my life. And the fact that they were willing to share it changed things for me. So you never know who you're impacting, and your trauma is worth something. It's very, very valuable. And so don't keep it stuffed away in your sock drawer, never to see the light of day. You are loved so deeply, even the parts of you that you think just need to be healed over and hidden away. So don't forget that this week. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out on the next episode. Make sure that you leave a 5-star review so more people can find us. And make sure you're following along on our social media platforms. There's some really cool and exciting things happening. I am doing one-on-one sessions again. I'm super excited about it. And you can read more about that on our platforms. So make sure to check that out. And I will see you next time. Have a great week, guys.